Chapter 11 of Carmilla, we learn that the general's problems began at a masquerade ball. It was here that he had noticed a young lady who was watching his niece. The young lady is very beautiful, and her name is Miyarka. She's attending the ball with her mother, who claims to know the general personally. As this unknown woman speaks with the general, his curiosity intensifies because she refuses to tell him who she is. Without giving too much away, the mysterious woman explains to the general she's worried about the health of her daughter. She has to travel a long distance, and she doesn't know what to do. She petitions the general to have him care for the young lady while she's gone, and the general's niece becomes hopeful that he will consent to this course of action. The general believes that his niece could do with some good company, and so he agrees. But as soon as Miyarka's mother leaves, suspicions are aroused immediately. Miyarka disappears, and she doesn't reappear until the next day. In chapter 13, we find that Miyarka's behavior at the general's estate is nearly identical to Carmilla's. In addition, we learn that the general's niece, too, had become very ill. Laura is hearing all of this as they're traveling, and it's starting to alarm her. The group finally arrives at the abandoned village, where an old man is summoned to help them locate the grave of the Countess Karnstein. And it's here that the explanation is given as to why the castle and the village surrounding it are in ruins. We've been exposed to a masquerade ball, so it's impossible not to talk about it. For a little history, masquerades were originally a component of the carnival season during the Middle Ages, where people were allowed to let themselves go before Lent was upon them. But nobody wants to be seen letting themselves go, right? Hence the mask. Masquerades over time became more like parties, and were often frowned upon for inviting unseemly behavior. And it's Miyarka's mother who appears to model this problem at the deepest level of horror. It's kind of strange because at this point, the general has never said specifically that the mysterious woman's daughter has killed his niece. But at the ball, he had cudgeled his brain trying to figure out who she was because of the mask that she was wearing. His curiosity was operating like a form of suspicion mark as to the nature of motivation itself. The masquerade and its mask symbolically represent the blurred distinction between guilt and innocence, the contrast between who we want to be and what we have to be. The gentleman in black is worth a brief mention here because he's so pale. The general has never seen anything like it, except in the case of seeing someone who's dead. Being pale denotes anemia, which is the loss of blood. The gentleman in black could be very sick. But he's dressed with elegance, so we're left to judge this look of competence against the possibility that he's neglecting to see a doctor. But then again, he's playing the role of a servant, so there must be something more to the story. My original thoughts were drawn to the modern-day Men in Black, but I thought that might be too far of a leap. We've spoken before about science versus the supernatural, and how the general has come to embrace fantastical ideas that the Englishman simply doesn't believe. And after everything that we've seen so far, the clinical terminology that has been interspersed with the paranormal, we finally have thematic reinforcement that jolts our story into a specific direction.
Do you believe in ghosts? Ghosts, no. Witches? Wizards? No. Werewolves? Of course not. Vampires? Hell yeah!
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. the word vampire has entered the narrative. The old man tells the group about past vampire problems, and he speaks with authority. Historicity is his mantra, and his subject matter is the essence of truth. The Karnstein village had great trouble with these creatures, and he knows this because testing had been conducted, the usual tests that the locals would have known about. He authenticates his information with a story about the Moravian nobleman who watched and waited for a vampire before cutting off its head. But it's the general who's our main concern here. He wants to know where it is, the grave of the Countess Karnstein. And it's because of the old man that his claim that he's seen her in the flesh becomes valid. The old man doesn't know where the grave is because her tomb had been removed, but the history reports that when they went to remove it, her body was never found.